New Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Olayemi Cardoso has pledged to stabilize the national currency, the Naira, after his confirmation by the Nigerian Senate. Cardoso, foremost bank executive, is expected to lift the Naira from its current doldrums as it continues to plunge against the bigger currencies of the world. Nigeria's monetary policies are expected to be the immediate concern of Cardoso and his team, with great expectation on his shoulders as Nigerians wait on the next few months for what the Apex Bank chief has to offer. Well, joining us to look at what Cardoso, promised on the floor of the Senate yesterday and the prospects ahead for him and his team, we have a policy strategist and Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf, who joins us from Abuja. Mr. Yusuf, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Kofi.
All right. It was quite an interesting time out on the floor of the Senate yesterday. Like I mentioned yesterday, I was particularly sort of impressed, a bit more impressed with the questions that the senators asked compared to when we had the ministerial screening. And Cardoso really had to earn his confirmation. But he's been confirmed, and he's the new Central Bank of Nigeria governor, along with his 4 deputies. What is your reaction to that? And of course, what are your initial thoughts on his appointment and his challenges and opportunities he faces as he takes on his role?
Well, thank you for having me, Kofi. It's a very good opening you made there. I was equally excited and pretty much impressed, not just by Mr. Cardoso as governor, but by the team, i.e. the other board members, deputy governors of the central bank. I believe these appointments will be round pegs and round holes. Cardoso, as the team leader, having an excellent pedigree of academic, professional excellence, a track record in the boardroom of corporate governance excellence, a high level of integrity, which are things that we need seriously in the person of a central bank governor that has been lacking for a long time. I believe this team, by the grace of God, will reclaim the integrity and credibility of our central bank going forward. And importantly, I will also add my voice to say kudos to the National Assembly. I believe yesterday's screening of the governor and the deputy governors are now appointed, was more robust. Questions spanning different spheres of the economy, which is very good, touching different areas. Importantly for me, areas around corporate governance, around leadership qualities, around sensitivities and sensibilities, very important for us going forward. So Kofi is a good one. We look forward to them hitting the ground running, but not running to nowhere, but running to somewhere. There's dire need for quick action. We intend to see their blueprint real quick. Naira is free falling. The economy is in dire straits. And I must say that now that there's a lot of leaning towards the monetary policy. I want us to also have pay serious attention to the fiscal policy, Kofi, to go pari passu the monetary policy, going forward, because the two have to go pari passu. I'm very happy that the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms has very prominently the CBN governor as a member, or the CBN as a governor, as a member represented, and also knowing that CBN governor is a member and his team are members of the economic team. They have their job cut out for them. I don't envy them, but I wish them well, and I hope and pray it's a sign of good days to come for Nigeria.
Right, quite interesting. I know you're referring to the committee headed by, I think, Taiwo Oyodele, who is to be with Price Waterhouse-Coopers. Cardoso has tried his best, yesterday to distance himself from Emefiele. He did, in fact, was very direct and blunt about it. But he also mentioned his commitment. I think one of the ways he's going to do that, he mentioned his commitment to evidence-based monetary policy. How important is this desire or direction, evidence-based monetary policy? How important is it for the CBN to rely on data and evidence, hard data, raw data, and evidence in making monetary decisions, especially in addressing the challenges in, foreign exchange market, stabilizing the exchange rate and all that. We've seen quite a lot of dramatic things with the CBN in recent times, if you would agree.
Credible data is the foundation of solid strategy that will be result-oriented in any situation. And at this point in time, we have a CBN that is bedeviled with almost 10 years of rot, progressive rot. And the only way for Cardoso to make sense of his appointment is, of course, to lean on credible data. You know, and he's saying it the right way he should do it is to look at credible data, to drive his thinking and the thinking of the team of CBN and build a strategy based on that so that they will get to the destination they are going to. If they are working on the wrong data, they are going to go completely off course and lead Nigeria into the abyss of the backwardness we have been sliding into. So it's a very important step for him to take. He's just stating the obvious. But importantly for me is the person saying it. The credibility of Mr. Cardoso, his track record, his antecedents is what makes me to have high level of expectation and hope that we intend to see a complete turnaround or a 180 degrees turnaround from what we have seen, which left to be desired with the immediate past leadership of the CBN. So yes, raw data should drive it. But importantly, I picked a nugget during the screening when he was asked a question. I had forgotten the senator. Very important question. And his response is on point with regards to corporate governance. Kofi, the critical failure factors with regards to the CBN and in the wider context with regards to Nigeria is leadership issue at the top. And in the case of CBN, corporate governance capacity, the capacity to say no, like he said, to have a board that will be robust, that will be thought-provoking and constructively engaging with a view to move Nigeria forward than the transactional, impulsive, and sometimes infantile, with due respect, policy formulations, not just within the framework of monetary policy, like I said, monetary policy on one hand and fiscal policy on the other hand, to work pari passu, to build back our economy are very important. So I'm very happy he's talking about, data, evidence, and of course, corporate governance with regards to integrity.
All right. So you obviously would like to see that critical handshake between the monetary side on his part and the fiscal side on the part of the coordinating minister for the economy. Cardoso also discussed strategies to address Nigeria's, struggling exchange rate and the challenges thereof. And we all know how a lot of things in this country, in the Nigerian economy, are tied to the exchange rate. What would you say are the short-term and long-term measures the CBN under Cardoso can take to stabilize the Nigerian exchange rate?
First of all, is to face reality and to be very transparent with regards to what they tell Mr. President and what they tell Nigerians. I believe there is no easy pill to get out of this economic doldrum. Let's face the facts, Kofi. And I want to see it clearly. Of course, he said it yesterday, even though when I saw, in some of the news items are flying around talking about 8-year plan, I hope that is not the case because, first of all, we have an administration that has a 4-year tenure. We expect a quick turnaround of this economy. We don't have 8 years to wait. We don't have 4 years to wait. We intend to see short, mid to long term, strategies to get out of this. And in the short term, when you talk about the monetary policy or turning on the foreign exchange, the foreign exchange is a function of other factors. The productivity of the economy, and our ability to rein in foreign direct investments, which we have seen happen in the last two weeks. Mr. President's visit to the G20, to the UAE, and to just out of the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. We've had billions of dollars investment commitment, which we hope on that side of leadership, there will be a fast track of bringing it in. Of course, there are some critical foundational steps to be done, which is not going to be the focal point of the CBN. The insecurity situation in Nigeria needs to be dealt with for you to engender more confidence and trust for the foreign direct investments to come in. The insecurity issue needs to be dealt with for the productivity of the country in terms of agriculture, in terms of the non-oil sector, and in terms of the oil theft to be dealt with also. These are all factors that will impact on the stability of our currency. The makeup of the show, the slideshow of rhetorics or mantra with regards to stabilizing our Naira will not work. Our macro and macroeconomic tactics in the short term are very critical, and facing those vulnerabilities are very important. Like I said, it's multidimensional. Security is going to be the foundation, and the pillars, of course, critical is data, and critical is a sure-footed strategy that will be based on our reality. Fiscal discipline is also very key to monetary policy or the stabilization of our currency, because the way and manner governance is done, there needs to be fiscal discipline in our budgeting, in the way and manner the economy is being managed. All this have overall impact on our, monetary stabilization with the dollar.
Okay.
And of course, we hope and pray the new CBN, they have told us this round tripping of a thing they have been doing will be a thing of the past immediately. And of course, this is not just CBN. I will use this opportunity to call on Mr. President to ensure that quickly all the monies that have been fretted away by the CBN or any other institution are returned as soon as possible so that we can have critical impact in the short to mid-term. But for us to be sure-footed going forward, we will allow the CBN, the new team, to formulate their strategy and a blueprint. I reckon a short term, 1 year, and then a four-year, long-term strategy to exit the situation, fully turn it around for us to know that we are out of the woods.
All right. It's interesting you're emphasizing that symbiotic relationship between the fiscal side and the monetary side. Both of them are critical to the success of Nigeria's economy and can work without the other. Inflation, that big word, inflation, that causes headache and heartache to people in the country today. Rising costs of goods and services. It's been a concern, for months and a couple of years now in Nigeria. Cardoso has emphasized, his approach, which he said will be evidence-based policies. To you, how can the Central Bank of Nigeria under Cardoso contribute effectively to controlling inflation and ensuring price stability? Because it could be argued that some of the measures before now actually added to pushing up inflation.
Yes, but you see, we need to realize that inflation control is not a sole function, it's not going to be based on the singular activity of CBN. It's going to be an entire governmental job to ensure that we manage the inflation. The global socio-economic headwinds, Nigeria is not insulated from the global socio-economic headwinds. The war in Ukraine and Russia and others, and of course the self-inflicted injuries in the past 8 years or more that have, really wreaked havoc on our economy and is dealing, big blow on our inflation. IMF projected that the growth of our economy will go at 3.1% for this year, but it was projected as at 2002. By 2004 there will be a contraction, down to 2.9%. Now that was before we got into the experimentation of the Emefiele-led CBN, of the Naira design, of all those monetary policies that have really wreaked havoc on the economy. And then also the removal of fuel subsidy, which is okay, but then we are not expecting that to happen without some, negative impacts. So these are all things that culminate and continue to, hit hard on our economy. So managing the inflation, of course, CBN has a critical role to play on the fiscal side and on the monetary policy side, but it's an overall government strategy with regards to how the government intends to move forward. Unless that is done, all the work of CBN will amount to naught. It will amount to CBN building and the other institution of government, destroying. And that leadership has to come from the top. So first of all, CBN has to clean the books. They have to put their house in order and face the reality. I like the evidence-based phrase. We heard from JP Morgan, and their lies were told to us with regards to our scoring result. This is a reality we have to face before we now think about stabilizing the Naira in terms of inflation. But it can be done unless the CBN governor and his team open what I call the book of reality, which is the situational analysis they will undertake in the next 1 or 2 weeks, and then for them to precipitate the real issues within the CBN. I will not be able to hazard too much guesses as to how we intend to go forward, because unless the extent of damage done to our economy by the previous CBN regime or administration is on the table for this team, for Nigerians, will not be able to robustly and honestly say this is the way to go. But on the academic side, yes, they have a role to play. But for me, on the leadership side, is an overall government framework issue. And that's why we have a presidential committee that's an interagency driven. But for CBN, they have work cut out for them in line with the provision of the CBN Act. I want them to focus on that and come out with the action plan for us to get out of this situation.
All right, Mr. Yusuf, quite interesting. In agreement with what you've said, the new central bank governor highlighted yesterday the need for fiscal discipline and also the need for cooperation with the fiscal side of government. So he obviously agrees with what your suggestions are. But let's look at one of the promises or targets he set himself, because you talked about the medium-term or short-term and medium-term targets. He is highlighted the CBN's role in supporting economic growth and development, and he is setting a goal of achieving a $1 trillion GDP growth in 8 years. That's a medium term. What are the key strategies and challenges he will face and he needs to employ in achieving this ambitious target? Is it even possible? Very briefly, please.
Well, it's always good to set audacious targets, and that is what Cardoso is. A guy like Cardoso will set audacious targets that will make everybody to be on his toes. And I can say it is achievable. 8 years, I don't know what will happen in the next 4 years, but I believe the levers, of the strategy will guide the short to mid-term, and those short to mid-term will be what will consolidate for the long term. I would say it's achievable. But fundamentals of governance, like I say, is what we're going to drive. Institutionalization of all our governance framework, processes and systems is what will enable CBN to deliver. CBN is not a tree within a forest, Kofi. It has dependencies and interdependencies. And what is critical is, I believe by the time Mr. Cardoso does that situational analysis, he will lean on the economic team and all the levers of government, and of course the political will of Mr. President to look. And I would like CBN to have focus. With regards to this intervention with the agri projects and all that, I think Cardoso need to put his house in order and have focus on this and let other arms of government deal with those interventions that are...
Thank you so much. I apologize, we have to go, but I want to thank you so much for your time. Nigerian economy has so much potential, and we hope that these promises will bear results. Baba Yusuf, policy strategist and Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Kofi.